intimidating. I got a camera on me and that big clock thing ticking. Is this working? Is it working? Okay. Okay. I've been asked to speak tonight on marriage and family, and I've been a marriage and family therapist for 20 years. So when I was asked to speak on that, it was a little cumbersome. It was a little bit intimidating because I thought I could get up there and speak for 2 weeks with all the experiences I've had in marriage and family, and how I use the Bible and how I try to help marriages and families. I struggled a little bit with this. I shared with Carla a couple weeks ago because I found myself getting very angry at work in terms of dealing with some of my marriage and family clients. Because I have to ask a question, and I think you'll probably know the answer to this. Do you think Christian families are any healthier than the average? Everybody shook their head no. Absolutely not. Sometimes even worse. And it angers me because we have tools that the average person does not. Okay, we should be filled with the love of Christ. We should be patient. We should be all of the things that God has given to us, all of the gifts of the Spirit that we've been given. And unfortunately, that tends to go out the window when we're dealing with our families and in our marriages. And I don't quite know the answer to that, other than maybe we're attacked a little bit more than the average person, maybe. But I picked a couple Bible passages. As we know, the Bible is rich with references to marriage and family life, of course. I would spend all day reading passage after passage in dealing with marriage and family. But of course, I want to read probably the most popular, which a lot of people pick out for their weddings, but the one that I think we have the hardest time living up to. 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Okay, now look at this passage. If you break this down, how do you think we're doing in terms of between an A to an F in living up to this passage with our families? How would you rate yourself? Or how would you rate your spouse or your children in terms of this? If you had to give yourself a grade, what grade would you give yourself? A B. Okay. Are you single or married? Married? Is your wife here? Would she give you a B?
She'd probably give me a D.
It's positive thinking. I know. When I was in school, we had this assignment where we would put couples together and we would turn them back to back. And we would do this. We would have them rate each other, and the answers were always radically different. How would you rate your spouse in housekeeping? How would you rate your spouse in taking you out socially and things like that? And it was always radically different. So we always do not see eye to eye. And when you look at some of the reasons that people get into problems in relationships, when we fail to meet these God's orders right here, why do you think we get into trouble? What is it that gets us into trouble? A lot of times it has to do with basic communication and conflict resolution. A lot of people will say, well, sex, money, in-laws? No. It's the way you handle those problems, the way you communicate, what you say to one another, the way that you say things. I always use this example. One day, I think Terry and I were bickering in the morning, and I went to the gas station, and the fellow at the gas station was, Hi, good looking, how you doing? Good morning, and here's your coffee, and have a blessed day. And I thought, wow, maybe I should marry that man. You know, and you hear, it's sad when you sometimes the people that you don't know can be nicer to you than your family members. You wake up and you're crabby and you're fighting on your way to church on Sunday all the time. We all know about that. So we can be very rude and crass to our family members and to our children. And I don't know where it's written that we should not respect our kids. But some people really have this belief that we should not respect our children. And that's where our children learn respect. And so we have to be very careful with the way that we're talking to our family members. Again, love is patient, and we're not always the most patient, right? Not at all. Love is kind, okay? So patience and kindness, and it does not envy. I see a lot of family members that get into competitive relationships. They have to be right. They have to be in control. They have to win the argument. Okay, what is it? Happy wife, happy life? Right, fellows? Just give up. Or like I do to Terry, I just let him think he won. I get my way eventually anyways. He's not here, so I can say that. He goes on and on. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Sure, honey. Okay, we'll see. So I get my way anyways. Love is not rude, okay? The way we speak, again. And I give another assignment where I put on a refrigerator. I want you to write down every time you say something rude to your family members on one side. And on the other side, I want you to write down every time you say a kind word to your family members. For 1 week. Guess what? They have to get more paper for the rude side. Because you'd be surprised how many times you throw things out there and you just don't realize. And a lot of times it's sarcasm. Sometimes our anger can be hidden in our sarcasm in the way that we talk to our family members. You know, we tease one another and make fun of each other, and we do this little jokey thing, which is okay. But every now and then we need to say, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're beautiful. You're my daughter. You're my son. You're my husband. You're my wife. Okay? Thank you for going to work. Women, we're bad at that. We don't thank our husbands enough. Okay? That's what I see a lot in my practice. We're always knocking the men for not doing this and that, but we all speak different love languages also. And the 5 Love Languages is a phenomenal book if you have not read it, because some people express their love differently than what you think is. You don't feel the love that they're expressing. Okay? And for a lot of men, it's the gift. It's gifts. Okay? And what do women want? Talk. We want communication, right? Okay. So we have to be careful with that. Okay. Intimacy is into me. Okay? And again, we want people to be into us. We want our family members to know us. Who in here can tell me your spouse's favorite movie? Oh, you're getting an A now? I can't wait to talk to his wife. Okay, how about her favorite song, her favorite color, her favorite, what has hurt her in her life? Or if you were to ask your spouse, what is the one thing that your spouse has done to you that has hurt you the most in this life? Okay, those are some interesting questions that lead to some fights, things like that. Yes, disagreements. Yeah, disagreements. Okay, is it true that all couples have to fight or families have to fight? Absolutely not. Once you learn to communicate, you don't have to fight. Love does not keep a record of wrongs. Okay, some of you have resentments that go back to 1960. You could say the day, the time, right? You did this to me, you said this, we were here, and you remember everything about it. Love does not keep those records because you'll make yourself crazy reliving it over and over and over again in your mind if you do that to yourself. And you won't get past it. It'll rent space in your mind, and it's like a poison. Okay. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Okay. So again, when you look at this, what are some things that we tend to ignore when we're fighting? When we're in a fight with our family members or we're in a disagreement with our family members, are we patient at that moment? Are we kind? Are we speaking loving to one another in our families? We can be horrible to one another in the way that we say things. Okay? Now I'm going to get into a little bit. I'm going to read a couple of other passages, but what I'd like to talk a little bit about is on a deeper level, we have issues of respect. We have issues of control, power, perfectionism, low frustration tolerances, all those little things that tend to drive you crazy about your spouse, okay? And some of those things can be on a deeper level. And again, as a counselor, a lot of times I'll see what we call parent, adult, child. Are you treating each other like kids? Are you treating each other like somebody's a critical parent and another person is the child? This is adult to adult relationship. Communication again, adult to adult. So we want to make sure that when we love one another and we pray about these things before we enter into a disagreement or we enter into discussion. You do not talk about these things in the car on your way somewhere. Okay? You're trapped. Men hate that, right? Because men want to run in their cave when they're frustrated. And women got their man's attention. So then you want to drive crazy. So you laugh at these things, but we've all been there, right? Let's talk about this terrible thing that has happened in the car. No, set a time and a place. Some people are morning people. Some people are evening people. I don't tell Terry anything bad at night while he's watching TV. I always wait till the morning. It always turns out much better. You know the car out there that Aaron smashed for the 5th time? I tell him that in the morning. No joke. Yeah, the car looks like it's not good. Okay, Terry, did you see the car? You don't tell him that at night. So we all have our moments, okay? So you pick your times, you pick your places when you have these discussions, okay? Do you catch your kids on their way out the door to go to school? Don't send your kids to school after you've just beat them up emotionally. That's painful. And we do that. We do tend to do that. You better do good today, and you know these grades, and I want you to bring everything home. And we start nagging and yelling and screaming and hollering, and then our kids go to school upset. So you have to pick your time. And use some common sense with the way that you handle communication. And again, love never fails. So if you truly believe that you're loved, and love always trusts. So if you truly believe what the Bible is teaching you, and you've said these vows, then you know that you're protected. Okay, you're protected by the covenant of your marriage, and you can speak the truth, and you can say these things and say it in a way that is appropriate. Okay. Everybody heard of the book "Women Are from Mars, Men Are from Venus," or is it the other way around? Which one's from which? Okay. It's pop psychology, but there really is a lot of truth in the book. Okay, sometimes the stereotypes in some of the pop psychology books don't always fit, but other times they do. And there is a lot of knowledge in some of these books that you can gain, just like the 5 Love Languages. Another good book by a Christian author is Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendricks. And I can give you these references when we're done. Phenomenal book. And as I talk a little further on a deeper level, the respect, the power, the control, the abuse. How many people here have abuse in their backgrounds or were witness to abuse? And then what I always hear is, well, this is the way my father did it. This is the way my mother did it. But that doesn't mean that it was right. So when you know better, you do better. Okay? And the Bible teaches you what to do. Okay? The Bible does not tell you, scream at your spouse and intimidate the whole family and terrorize everybody to get your way. That's not in the Bible anywhere I know of. Okay? So but you get crazy things like that. So again, looking at on a deeper level, when you look at marriage and family, are there substance abuse problems? Is there abuse in the background? Are there affairs? Is there gambling addictions? Perfectionism, mental illness? Okay. Sometimes you have a family member with a mental illness, and we all know that can be extremely difficult. Personality disorders. I could go on and on. Sometimes there's deeper-seated issues than just basic communication problems when you're looking at marriage and family problems. So you have to determine what it is. But a lot of people come in with just basic, we can't communicate. We just can't talk. And then I watch them for 5 minutes and I know why. So it's real clear. It just hits you in the head. And body language is what? 80? Is it 80 or 90%? I forget. I know it's huge. It's a lot. It's not what you say, it's how you say it and what's going on in your body language. Okay. I used to be infamous for rolling my eyes. I still do it. I'm like, here he goes again. Just get out of my face, And why are you rolling your eyes at me? That I was good at that. Yeah, pushed him clear over the edge. Okay. Then he waves his arms. Terry's real dramatic, if you know my husband, so funny. Okay. Now I'd like to look at, open your Bibles, I'd like to look at Ephesians 5. Oh boy, I need glasses. Okay. Ephesians 5, 22 to 33. Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated his own body, but he feeds and cares for it, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Okay. That all sounds very easy, right? Okay, pretty clear. What do you do if you have somebody who doesn't love themselves? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's the first rule, is you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself. And when you love yourself, and where do you learn to love yourself? Through the love of Christ. So when you love yourself, then you can love your family appropriately. And the first paragraph, which always brings up conflict for people, because they get into that word submit, and then we can go all off into a lot of disagreements on what exactly they're meaning. I heard a minister one time say that you can't submit to a person if they're being an idiot. And that's exactly the way he worded it. And the bottom line is, you can submit when the person is appropriate, and there's something that you're submitting to with respect, and there's discussion. So you have to be careful, husbands, in saying, okay, I'm the head of the household and you have to submit to me. If there's something that you're not in your right mind, or you're talking crazy, we can't submit to that. So then we have to seek godly counsel, and bring 3 men to pray and get you guys in line. And wives, I know this is not in this passage, but the nagging wife where the husband wants to go live on the roof. Okay, so wives, stop the nagging. Okay. But love your wives like Christ loved the church. Okay? Then we'll gladly submit, right? So it goes one, it's together. It's not separate. It's not one or the other, it's both. So being loving and giving and all of those things will in turn reap love and forgiveness and kindness and all of the things and patience. It's like the little thing that says when you want to raise your child with love, they become loving. Raise your child with forgiveness, they become forgiving. Things like that. And it's the same thing in our families. That's what we want to project. Okay. Okay. Again, on a deeper level, as I stated before, there's things that interfere in our ability to love appropriately, and those can go back to abuse issues from your past, generational sin that can go generation after generation, or what we call in therapy the abuse excuse. I was abused, so therefore now I'm going to abuse. And those are things that have to be fixed on a deeper level, and you have to be delivered from those things, and you need people around you to help you get through these things, because sometimes they're just they penetrate your soul. Okay, especially physical abuse, sexual abuse, things like that. The best way that I've ever heard it described is I had a lady say to me. I said, well, explain to me what that's like. And she said, take one leg, tie it to a horse, take the other leg and tie it to another horse, and let them run in different directions. And that was the way she described sexual abuse. And when she described it in that manner, I got it. I said, wow, okay. She said, it's like your soul is being ripped in half. So those type of things that, can interfere in the way that you are loving your family members, the way that you're treating your children, physical abuse. Some of us have been exposed to violence as kids, and anger, and just general family problems. Who doesn't have family problems? If you haven't been exposed to abuse, you're lucky. You're lucky, because the statistics are overwhelming, as to how many of us have been. So again, I would like to say that, affairs, we could talk about serving. I always tell people in affairs, you can't serve two gods. Affairs don't just happen. They're set up in motion, okay? And usually the spouse, particularly women, I think can see these things coming. I don't know. Women, we have this intuition. We can look at a woman, look at your husband, and go, oh, no, this one you're staying away from. We know. We got this sixth sense, right? It's very true. Very true. But the man goes, I didn't see anything. So, yeah, we know these things. Trust us when we say these things. Trust us. Okay. And again, the affairs don't just happen. Amen. Okay. Affairs don't just happen. I don't know how this happened. It was 3 a.m. I went to his house. We had some wine. Okay. I was fighting with my husband. No, you don't set yourself up. You have to protect your boundaries. If you are hurting, what do? If you're hurting in your marriage, you don't go to a member of the opposite sex for comfort. Go to a best friend. Go to your pastor. Go get some counsel. But do not let the devil enter in and get that foothold into your marriage. Things like that. Okay. Is the 7:54 my time? I'm good? Okay. I wanted to open it up and do it a little bit different if I could, because it's a small group. I wanted to open it up to any questions that you may have for me that might... Anything that you would have questions on? About marriage, family, child rearing? No questions? Oh. Mm-hmm. The generational sin. You know, it's what the way that we're hardwired a lot of times is what we're taught. Children are little sponges, so they take in a lot of different things that are going on in their environment, and what do? We recreate that. Okay, one of the authors of getting the author in Getting the Love You Want, he has a statement that he says. And it's this. He says, you in your relationships will continually return to the scene of the original hurt, and you will recreate it over and over again. And how many of you in your families today flashed back to your childhoods and went, oh, I'm doing the same thing my parents did. I swore I would never do this. But we all do it if we don't put the brakes on it. And we consciously make that decision to do things differently, okay? And that's basically what happens is we learn and we repeat, and this is what we do generation after generation, and it takes a lot to break those patterns, okay? And how do you break a bad habit? You acquire a good habit in its place. So. That's what I've heard, 21 to 30 days. Hence, that's where a lot of the 30-day treatment centers and 30, or, you sign up for a gym, and they usually make you sign up for 90 days. I think it's a little bit longer than the 21 days, but if you do something repetitively for like a month to 2 months, usually it gets ingrained in you, and then you keep doing it. So. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's with a lot of support, prayer. The support is the key. Being able to express it to somebody and get it off your chest, and prayer and learning about it. So it's kind of a multitude of things to break it. Did you have somebody else? Uh-huh. That's a tough question, because I think that's where you have to determine God's will as opposed to your will. And I think that one is hard, because some people, they have such a desire to either stay single or to marry, and they may get their own will and their own desires mixed up with the will of God. So I think it's more determining what God's will is for your life, and how, and again, how do you determine that will? What is God telling you, or what, because you may have a desire to stay single, but God may have a different plan for you, and if God puts somebody in your life, and you fall in love, then maybe that's the will that God has for you. So, did that kind of answer it?
Well, that's more or less partly what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
People have certain gifts to Paul talks about that everyone has their own gift. And so I just wondered if, who said to just like ask the Lord, even though, it's like giving if he gives a particular gift, thank you for that gift.
Mm-hmm.
Say, no, I don't want that gift. I want
Right. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. I'd like to close in prayer if there's no other questions.